2002, and we're here at Priscilla Batchelor's apartment here at St. Dominic's, and Priscilla's going to tell her story. Take it away, Priscilla.
Well, my home is in Vermont. This is where my parents came from. They were born here and brought up there. Small towns. One lived in Orleans, the other lived in Louisville. Very small towns. Well, when my parents grew up and wanted to get some education, my mother went to the normal school to become a teacher. Her name was Theda, T-H-E-D-A, Twombly. Now that's her married name. Her maiden name is Wellman, Theda Wellman.
How do you spell that?
W-E-L-L-M-A-N.
Okay.
So she went away to the normal school, which wasn't very much education in those days. And she became a teacher in the first grade. My dad wanted to be a pharmacist. He had worked some in the drugstore and got interested in that. And he went to Massachusetts College of Pharmacy in Boston, which was a big deal to leave home and go down there. And while he was there, he had sciatic trouble in the nerve in his legs. He missed a lot of school. But he finally did graduate, and he came back to Vermont. Then the two of them were married, and they bought a little drugstore in Waterbury, Vermont, and they went there to live.
How old were they when they married? Do you know?
They were 27, each of them.
Okay.
They had been working and saving their money there and trying to get some furniture and things like that started.
Mm-hmm.
They had an old car. It was called a brush car. That was the make of it. And they piled in whatever they had and went down to Waterbury and started. They lived up over the drugstore in a little apartment there. And there was a telephone office up there where they had the operator still. So my dad, whose name was Earl Maynard Twombly, T-W-O-M-B-L-Y, that's an English name. He started rolling the pills there and giving out the medications, and this is a long time ago. They were born in 1885, so that's a long time ago, and everything was very different then. Well, as time went on, they had 3 girls, 3 daughters. The oldest one is named Emily. I'm the middle one, Priscilla, and another daughter named Rebecca. So we lived there in Waterbury, and we went to school there through high school, all 3 of us. Meantime, my dad had changed jobs. He didn't like the inside work, and he got a position with the post office as a rural mail carrier, running around the back roads from the country.
Wow.
In the winter, he had a sleigh and horses, and in the summertime, he had a car, but there was lots of mud and bad roads, and he was always late coming home or getting stuck somewhere. So I can remember him hitching up the sleigh in the winter and getting on his buffalo coat and getting his robes. He had a bearskin coat that he wore and buffalo robes to put over his legs. And he would take off then in the middle of the street going around the corner. And at night when he came home, he would be covered with frost. It was so cold, you know, his face and his eyebrows and around his hat or whatever.
How long did he do that job? How long was
He
it?
retired from that job.
Really?
But of course, after a while, it got better, and he could go in the car in the winter, and the roads were plowed out and all that.
Okay.
And sometimes when the roads weren't plowed out too well, and there was one loop that he had to make, he would take me and my skis, and I would ski up around that loop and leave the mail in the boxes. And then I would meet him down at the corner. But he did his best for those people. They were very poor. They couldn't get into the doctor, and he would call the doctor for them, and he would get the prescriptions and bring them up, which probably wasn't too legal, but he helped them, took care of them. And at Christmas time, they ordered everything from the catalog, ironing boards, sleds, whatever they wanted, and he had to deliver them in the car.
Oh.
That was a hard deal.
And was it his own car, or did?
Yes, his own car.
Oh my golly.
So meantime, he had a couple jobs on the side to make some more money, take care of us all. He raised dogs and trained them, hunting dogs, English setters and Irish setters and pointers. And he taught violin lessons, mostly to children. He charged $1 a lesson. So after school at night, it would be squeak, squawk, squeak, squawk.
Oh,
But he played the violin, my mother played the piano. We always had music at home.
it's beautiful.
We'd all get together and sing, the girls, and they would play for us.
Do you still sing?
Yeah, play this
Oh,
year.
that's right.
So that was good.
Oh.
That was a good life.
Mm-hmm.
It was a happy life. So let me see. When I got out of high school, I wanted to go away to college, but we didn't have too much money. And finally, after a year's time, I went to Colby College up in Waterville, Maine. And I only made it through 1 year, and then the money gave out, so I came back home. Meantime, I had met my future husband one summer, and we dated a little bit, but it was just not a flaming romance. He went off and joined the Navy, and I went off to college. So that was that for a while.
What year was that? Do you remember?
1939.
Okay.
He thought a war was coming, and he did not have any training, and he made up his mind that he wanted to get some training before wartime came. So he joined the Navy. He spent 6 years in the Navy. And we were married in 1942, and he got out of the service in 45. So by then we had 2 children. We came back to Vermont. We lived in New York City. I worked there for a while he was in the Navy. I worked on Wall Street for a Canadian bond company. I think they just kept me around for laughs. I was so green from Vermont, I didn't know what was going on. And I worked for a man that owned a furniture store. He had custom-made furniture. And he would give me the fare for the subway and tell me where to go. And I would be off looking for drawer pulls and special things to go on the furniture that the buyers would want. They would come to his factory and choose what they wanted, and then you'd get it put together. So I learned all about New York. Then I knew how to get here and there very easily.
Mm-hmm.
After that, we lived in Virginia for a while, and we went to Florida. And my husband was fire chief at Jacksonville Naval Air Station in Jacksonville, Florida. So we lived there for a while. Then when the war was over, he was paid off in 45, and we came back to Vermont, just like all the chickens want to come home.
Yes.
So jobs were pretty scarce, and he took whatever he could get. He did some carpentry work. He worked in an apple orchard there. And finally we decided to buy a farm. So by then we had 3 children, okay? So we bought a broken down farm in Waterbury on the back road. And the cattle were very poor quality and the land was worse. And we didn't know too much about farming anyway, so we went along on that for a while. I don't remember how long we were there. Probably a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had another son, that was Daniel. He's in Afghanistan today, working with Eric. Say more about that later. Okay. So one day, my husband came home and said, "Guess what? Someone wants to buy our farm." I said, "I can't believe that." He said, "Yes. There's a man up in Canada that wants to come down here and buy the farm and farm with his sons. They have some places nearby here, and they'll all work together." So we sold everything. We had an auction. We got up out of bed in the morning and we just stripped the house and had the auction, sold everything out that way. And we went to California. We had 4 children under school age with us. We didn't have a trailer, no camping equipment. We had a foot locker in the back of the car and filling the space between the back seat and the front seat. We had the baby basket on there with the youngest. He was 5 months. And we had the other 3 sitting in the back seat. And we had some cots, these wooden cots that have the canvas bottoms and
Mm-hmm.
wooden legs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the two of us slept on outdoors, okay? Slept outdoors. So we got out to California, and he worked at several jobs there, trying to find a fireman's job, which he never did find. So he worked first at a grape ranch where they raise these little green grapes. And his job was to take care of a herd of dairy cows on an island out in the San Joaquin River. So we lived out in this island here, just the cows and us. And after that, he got a job at San Simeon Ranch, where William Randolph Hearst owned that place. And he worked there with the Arabian horses. Mr. Hearst had contacted some men from the United Nations and brought some horses over from the desert, and they were going to train them and breed them and show them at the Arabian shows. They have a lot of them in California. So when he got off duty, we used to go down to the ocean and fish, take the children with them, play on the beach, and we had a great time out there. Okay, suddenly I was pregnant again. Now what are we going to do? We don't want to stay in California. We're not too crazy about that anyway, so we packed up, started east, and went back to Vermont again.
How long did it take you to cross the country? Do you have a clue?
I can't remember. Probably quite a while.
Did you still have those wooden cots?
Yes, we had them. And when we got back to Vermont, then we rented an apartment and lived inside. That was much better.
Mm-hmm.
So then my husband had several jobs after that. He sold insurance, and he got a job at the Air Force Base in Burlington, Vermont, and he worked there as a fire chief. And then the base closed, and here we were with a house full of kids and no job. So we left the children with the babysitter one day, and we went up to Montreal. St. Joseph's Shrine is up there. And we got down on our knees, and we prayed to St. Joseph to help us to find a job and find something that we could take care of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we got back, our oldest daughter was there, and she told us they had a phone call from the U.S. Customs Service. They want him to come for an interview. So in a few days, the customs people came, and they stayed in our home from morning till night, and they questioned us on everything, every part of our life. Our finances, our education, everything, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It was just like the, what do I want to say, the FBI coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So then he got the appointment, and he started working different bases along the northern border there between Canada and the United States. And that's the job he retired from. He retired from that. Meantime, the children had gone on to their education, whatever they were going to do, and when the time came that he retired, 1975, we still had 3 children to get through high school. And he wanted to sell out and get a big travel trailer and go on the road and see the world for a change. So, well, what about the children? We sat down and talked it over. Would you like to study with us and travel in the trailer with us? And they said no, they wanted to go to school and be with other people their age. Since we had a son in the Border Patrol by then in Texas, we decided to come down here. We came down here and put the children in school. And we traveled around some. Oh, I forgot to say that the middle boy went up to Alaska to live with his sister and her husband. They had 7 children, okay? So he was last on the list. He didn't stay up there too long. He stayed for a while, and then he decided to come to Texas and live with us. So then these 3
what
children...
year was it that you moved down to Texas, do you recall?
75.
75. And now all the children were born at this time.
Yes.
And the youngest were still to finish high school.
To finish high school.
Okay.
The children were born in the space of 19 years. Okay, does that help any?
Yes, it does.
When the last one was born, the oldest one was 19. She was in nursery.
Oh my golly.
Okay?
Yes.
And we lived in several towns in Vermont. We lived in Allbird Springs, Vermont. We lived in Island Pond. And we lived in Richmond, Vermont. Okay, now we're all in Texas, what there is left of us that aren't married or in school.
Uh-huh.
And when these 3 children graduated from high school, then we really took off and traveled back and forth the country, up and down and back and forth. And my husband said, now we're going to see all the places that we read about in school, and we never got to see the wheat fields. We never got to see the Rockies. We never got to see the cotton growing. And now we're going to do that. So that's what we did. And we both agreed on it. That was the best part. We went back up north for the weddings when the girls were married. We were able to do that, and that was good. So then the time came, you know that you can't handle this big trailer anymore and you can't drive it anymore. You have to get off the road.
Mm-hmm.
No one has to tell you that, you know that.
Mm-hmm.
So we went back and found an apartment and lived there and sold the trailer. But that was okay. We had to do that anyway. Sold the trailer and the truck, and we got a station wagon, which was much better for us.
What year was this? Do you have any idea?
I have to think for a minute.
Okay.
Well, that was around 1980.
Okay.
So we were still, you know, able to drive around and see
Mhm.
parts of Texas that we haven't seen, things like that.
What part of Texas had you settled?
We were in Kerrville.
Pretty territory.
We were in Kerrville. And the children came to visit us there. Patrick came over from Hawaii, and Becky comes every year from Alaska. So they all kept in touch and see where we live. And the grandchildren would come to visit us too. So a few years after that, my husband had a stroke. And at first, he was able to stay at home, and I had someone to help me in the home. And then he had another stroke, and that time he had to go into the nursing home to be taken care of. He was paralyzed and speech impaired. So he was in Fredericksburg then. That was the only place that we could find that would have the therapy and the care that he needed.
Mm-hmm.
So I moved there and got an apartment and stayed there. And I was able to visit him every day then.
Good.
Go and spend the day with him.
Mm-hmm.
So that lasted for 5 years before he passed away. But towards the end, he was able to have control of his left hand and get up on a scooter, as you say, and go outdoors, and I would walk with him every day. And that just changed his whole life once he got out of that nursing home and out under the sky again, which
Mhm.
was good.
What he liked to do.
That was good.
Mm-hmm.
So
How old
that-
was he at this time?
Let's see. He was 74, 75.
Just a young man.
He was 75 when he died.
And so that left you still in Fredericksburg?
Yes, that left me there in the apartment. But the children wanted me to come back to Vermont and either live with them or they were going to build me a house or something. And I said I didn't want to face those snowy winters.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter-in-laws all worked and my sons all worked, and I would be alone, you know. And I wouldn't be able to drive in the snow then. That didn't sound good to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to stay there. That's when I looked around for some volunteer jobs to do, and I found plenty of them to do.
Yes. Good, good.
That kept me busy.
Did you have any relatives there in Fredericksburg? No.
Just friends.
Just friends. That's good. What kind of volunteer work did you do?
Well, I started in with Head Start because I loved children, loved to be with them.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as I could get out on the playground and play with them and get up and down, and I stayed there for a while, and that was good. And then after that, I met their parents, and I saw that they needed English, and they were so shy, and they got to trust me, and so I got into tutoring. and helping them. And they would come to the house and bring the children. And I had a toy box there, and they'd play, and the girls would study with me. And one girl I had for 2 years,
Oh,
and that was great.
mm-hmm.
Some of the others would come and go. Some of the husbands didn't like that too well. They didn't want their wives down there with me, and they didn't want them learning English. So I asked them to come down and see what it was like. I told them, I live here alone, you don't have to worry. So after they met me, then they felt better about it and let their wives come and bring the children, okay? So that's the way that went. And then I got sick, and my 2 sons, the nearest, were here near Houston. One in New Caney, and the other lives in Needville.
Mm-hmm.
And that meant they had to drive back and forth to check on me, which was too much. So when I got so I could travel, they decided to bring me up to Conroe, and I would live at the Strake House there as assisted living and independent living. So I stayed there until I discovered this place. And one day we read in the bulletin about St. Dominic's was building a 5-story tower, and they were looking for residents. So we said, well, let's go up and find out about this place. We got up here. We got to look at this apartment here, and my children all said, this is it. We're going to move you up here. The chapel's only 5 minutes away, and the dining room 5 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
You're on the ground floor. Have a beautiful view of the courtyard there, and see the birds and squirrels and all that. So here I am.
So now I saw they were playing bingo today. Do you ever go play bingo?
I don't care for bingo, no.
It's not your forte.
Not really, no.
Oh, golly.
I find other things to do.
What did you do as a child? What kind of activities did you do?
When I was a child,
Mm-hmm.
well, let me see. Try to remember that. I wrote some of that down in my book.
Ah. Where is that book?
Oh, I haven't got it published yet. It's
No.
still in the raw stage. My parents are both outdoor people, and they love nature, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So they took us out there to learn the wildflowers, the trees, the leaves, the birds, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever we had time off on the weekends, then we went out into the wilderness somewhere there. And my mother taught us all these little flowers and mosses and things like that.
Oh, it's nice.
That was good. And my father would build us what he called a wiki up. You'd make a little thing like a frame, and then put boughs over it, make it like a little tent. We could crawl in there and play.
Oh, how nice.
He said that's what the Indian said was a wiki up. Okay. He liked to hunt and fish. He was an outdoor person.
So did you eat what he caught?
Yes, we did. He shot deer and ducks and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Since he didn't have any boys, just girls, he had an infant son that only lived for 3 months. So there was always a loss there. When he met my husband lost his father when he was 11. So these two just bonded. They were just buddies from the word go. They loved hunting and fishing in the outdoors. And it was just beautiful to see. It was very
Mhm.
nice.
That is nice. So you were always an outdoors person.
Yes, I used to ski, and I used to hike a lot, go up the mountains.
Mm-hmm. Vermont is beautiful territory. How did you end up in Vermont?
Well, we were born there, both
You were born
of
there,
us.
that's right.
We were all born up there.
Where were your parents born? Do you know?
Yes, they were born there in Vermont.
Oh,
My
okay.
grandparents, they were born in Canada. They had immigrated to Canada
From
from England. Mr. Twombly came from England, and my other grandmother's people, her name was Brennan. They came from Ireland, and they lived there. So my grandmother's names were Ella Brennan. She married Mr. Twombly, and the other grandparents. No, that was my parents. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Theda Laura Wellman married Earl Maynard Twombly. Those are my parents.
wow. And so it was your great-grandparents who came from England and Ireland. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. So are there any relatives back in England and Ireland?
I don't know. We've never been able to find them.
Yeah. So your children are all scattered
Yes.
across the...
Same with my grandchildren. They're every place, and they're moving all the time, taking new jobs.
Mm-hmm.
But they all keep in touch with me. That I love. When I came here, I learned about the computers and got on the internet. So I get about 7 emails a day now from all my children and grandchildren. When anything happens, I'm the first one to hear. And they send pictures of all the great-grandchildren, all the new puppies, and all the ones that are pulling teeth and everything like this. So I'm right in the middle of the whole thing, even though I am isolated and live by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. It's great.
That is great. And you had 13 children in
Yeah.
19 years.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And the 8 boys, did you
8
say?
boys,
And
yes.
5 daughters.
5 girls.
What are their names?
Well, the first one is Becky. Okay.
Okay.
She's the one that lives in Alaska now. Then there's Peter, Ben, Daniel, and Bruce, all in a row.
Okay.
After that, there's Jean. That's a girl. There's Patrick, Mark. There's Mary and Faith, Paul, John, and Sarah.
You did good. My fingers were getting tired counting them right there. That is
Well,
one.
I write down the grandchildren in the Bible and the great-grandchildren. I have them all there in the days they were born.
What's the youngest great-grandchild's?
The youngest
age?
one was born in April 30th, and her mother graduated from college the 17th of May.
Oh, that is great. That is great. Did you have any pet names for your husband?
Not really, no. Mike, his name is Morton Henry Batchelder, but everyone called him Mike.
Mike. Where did Mike come from?
Well, they said he looked like his grandfather when he was born. There's another little Mike, that's what his mother told me. So that stuck with them, I guess.
Did he have any pet names for you?
Not really. No.
His good old wife, huh? Oh, golly. What kind of station wagon did you all have? Do you recall?
It was a Ford Granada.
Ford Granada. Wow. And that was your last car?
That was my last car.
that
I
you
kept
had.
that until I came to the Conroe to live, yes. I
What kind
sold
What kind of mobile home did you have? Or trailer that...
it was a Prowler. It was what they call a fifth wheel, hooks in the back of the truck.
Yes.
The longest one that they make, I guess. Has 2 doors,
Oh,
and it has a little step-up bedroom on top.
yes. So, how long did you travel like that?
We traveled 8 years, lived 8
8
years in there.
years.
Everything for Christmas, New Year's, Easter, and whatever. And when we bought some new clothes, he said we have to get rid of something then, so whatever you buy new, you're going to take something out of the closet and give it to the Goodwill. That worked out good.
That worked out nicely, huh? Everybody profited from that. So, did you cover all the states?
No, most of them.
Most of them.
There's a couple up north that we can get to. We did make one trip up through Montana and up into Canada, around the Great Lakes.
Mm-hmm.
Come back down into Vermont that way.
Did you keep any kind of a journal of your travels?
I did for part of the time, yes.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever do any of the driving, or did?
Yes, oh yeah.
Oh yeah. You traded off, huh?
I drove with a trailer and back sometimes. Almost hit a bridge one time.
Really? What?
And ran over a dog, okay.
Ooh, ouch.
What can you do? You can't stop that rig on
That's right. Tell me about the bridge. What happened to the?
Well, we were going around the corner, you know,
Ah.
and I was not compensating for that, and so we nearly nicked him in the back, but it didn't happen.
Good, good. Wow. Any exciting adventures over the years that just stick out in your mind?
We have both enjoyed the travel and meeting different people
Nice.
from all walks of life, you know.
Mm-hmm.
In the trailer parks where we would stay, like in New Mexico, we go up in the mountains and stay in the trailer parks up there. We meet people from all over the country. And at night they get together and have a bonfire, you know, and talk about their home and their family. It was a good life.
With 13 children, you had a lot of talking
I
to
did
share.
a lot of listening too.
Yeah.
But it restored my faith in this country. Before we started out, I kept hearing that America was going downhill and the people were getting immoral and this and that. But after we traveled, I felt a great feeling that America was good and the people were strong.
Good.
The people that we met, they were all solid, okay? No plastic people.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe plastic people don't go out in trailers.
Maybe they're in pursuit of something else.
Yeah. It's a good life.
It sounds like it. So did any of the grandkids or children go with you whenever you camped?
Yes, we did. We had one big family reunion. I might talk about that a little bit.
I'd like that.
1981, okay? We were all in good health that year. And all the children came, and all their spouses, and the ones that weren't married brought their boyfriends. And all the grandchildren, and we were all together at a campground on a lake. So we had a chance to play baseball, and they had a big playground and everything there. And that was a great day. We never had it again, just once.
What month was that in?
It was in July.
In July, here in Texas?
No, I was in Vermont,
In Vermont, okay.
where they all grew up. They all grew up in Vermont.
Yes. So did everybody make the?
Everybody made it.
Everybody made it.
We have lots of pictures of that.
Good. Do you know how many people were there all together?
No, I never counted up things. I never had the time.
I believe that. I believe that. Oh, golly. So now you said you have a son that lives in Afghanistan.
Well, he
That's
works there.
working
He
there.
goes back and forth. He's been doing that for 5 or 6 years now. He works with an outfit called the International Foundation of Hope, which is based in Colorado Springs.
Uh-huh.
And they go to help out people in Venezuela, Guatemala. When Afghanistan got into so much trouble, they started going over there. And they bring, now that the war is over and things are settled down a little bit, they're helping to build up schools and medical clinics, and they have volunteers that come, like engineers and people like that, that will pay their own way and come over there and work. And they get a great outpouring of cash from churches
Mm-hmm.
that want to help, and they send their own representatives over there. And he's more or less in charge of coordinating this whole deal with the Afghan government.
Is he married?
Yes, he's married.
Does his family
wife
go?
does not go over there, no.
Mm-hmm.
She works in Colorado Springs with a lot of refugees, like the Kurds and people like that.
Mm-hmm.
She helps them with their language problems, helps them get jobs, and goes to the hospital when they have their babies, and all things that are strange to them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she works hard. She does.
Mm.
And she prays a lot.
So your son communicates with the government
With the government of Afghanistan, yes.
uh-huh. to decide what they need or. Mm-hmm. Wow. Now, what does the family do? What's his name?
Daniel,
His name is Daniel, the one that lives in on Kodiak Island.
that's Becky.
Becky. So, and what keeps them there at Kodiak Island?
Well, they went up there when he was in the service. He worked at a nuclear power plant there. He was in the Navy, and he worked in the Army base in this power plant, and they fell in love with Alaska then.
Mm-hmm.
So when he got paid off, then they went up there to stay, lived there forever.
Oh, that's great.
He had a outfitting shop with all kinds of things for hunters, trappers, and they had canoes, and they had a room where they filled it up with sewing machines, and the Eskimos sewed boat covers and all canvas, things like that. He had a shop in Anchorage and one in Fairbanks. And when he retired, they sold that out. She retired from nursing. She was a nurse there.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're just enjoying the good life.
Mm-hmm. And in that territory, that's beautiful territory. They have a lot to enjoy. That's great. So, do you have any fondest memories of your past besides your traveling? Anything with the children? Anything that just drove you crazy about the kids?
No, I never really got all crazy about that. I love to have them all come home on holidays. We had a huge table, and they always brought friends, and we all sat around there, and we enjoyed that. We had a big garden. We raised pigs and chickens and all that in the country. You know, we had to live in the country, of course. We had a big house there. And we used to can and freeze up our vegetables.
Now, where was this?
This would be in Fallbrook Springs, Vermont, 1 mile from the border.
Oh, okay.
An hour to Montreal,
Wow.
but a lifetime away from Montreal, as you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
So-
in the summer, the boys would work for the farmers and work in the hay fields, and the girls would babysit and help me, and we would can everything up in these glass jars, mason jars.
Mm-hmm.
We have a cellar half full of that. They talk about that now. All those tomatoes, green beans, carrots, and all the jellies and jams and
sure.
pickles we had.
So, what did you do with the chickens and the pigs?
Put them in the freezer.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
And we bought our beef by the half and brought that home, and the boys learned how to cut beef and how to, we all wrapped it and got it in the freezer.
Oh, so you bought
We
it?
took care of it. Or we didn't raise the beef, no, we didn't have the land for that.
No, but you.
We raised the pigs and the chickens.
The butchers didn't butcher it and package it for
No.
you. You all had to do that.
We got the half of the critter and brought it home.
You had a talented bunch there.
They learned a lot.
That's right. Do any of the kids have their own garden and can
Yes.
Do they?
Don't can too much. They freeze.
freeze? Mm-hmm. That is great. What is one thing out of your life, if you had some words of wisdom to pass on to future generations, what would you, you've taught me a lot just in this short time that we've talked. I'm just excited about life. But what words of wisdom would you pass on to grandchildren, great-grandchildren? What would you like to share?
I think you should just take each day as it comes and make the most of that. Not look back too much and not look ahead too much. Just enjoy the day and keep your faith.
That's it. That's good. Okay. We'll go ahead and sign off for now, and if you think of anything else, we'll just turn it right back on. And I thank you with
I think
all of my
that's-
heart for sharing.